show, a Southern Sports Gumbo. We're going to talk semifinal playoff games and then dive into the portal a little bit. So we'll jump right into the um, Miami Ole Miss game. Kevin, want to get us started on that one?
Yeah, so to me, this is a really interesting game in contrast and styles this week. I'm really looking forward to watching it. You have Miami, which is a total line of scrimmage team, offense and defense, great front seven on defense, can get pressure with four, going against a team that relies on tempo on offense and and really relies on that tempo, keeping the same defense on the field, which Miami can do. And one of the things that's been an advantage for Ole Miss all year is they haven't played a team that there's very few teams that can do what Miami does with a front seven that can rush the passer strictly with their front four and still play coverage. Very few teams in college football can do that nowadays that have a good enough front four to do that. So tempo has been an advantage for Ole Miss all year because of that. In this game, it could be a little different though, because Miami doesn't have to substitute in and out as much. Still got to substitute in a nickel in some situations, but it's going to be that part's going to be really interesting to me. And then you flip it on the other side, same thing. Miami's offensive line is really good. Ole Miss has at times this year's had problems defending the run, even though Eccles has played really well, and I think that's a key for Ole Miss is he has to have a good game. Otherwise, if Miami can run the ball and again their front four on defense can put pressure, it'll be a very interesting game. We'll get into it a little more, but I guess I can go ahead and get into it now. If you look at Miami this year, they've played a lot of guys that are quarterbacks that can run the ball, and none of them have had success. Byron Brown, they shut him down less than 10 yards rushing. Um, Marcel Reed had 17 carries, 29 yards. The only quarterback that ran the ball for over 50 yards, a dual threat quarterback, was Castellano. I think he ran it for 59 on 17 carries. Every other dual threat quarterback has been less than 30 yards rushing the ball this year, simply because Miami's able to pressure with their defensive ends, stay in their lanes, and not just contain the quarterbacks but get sacks. They had 7 against Reed. They had 5 last week against Ohio State. Texas A&M has a very good offensive line. So to me, that matchup is going to make this game very interesting because when Chambliss got outside the pressure against Georgia, he just lit them up because they were blitzing. Miami Miami doesn't have to do that. Miami can play coverage when they're back with their back seven, rush with four. I just think that part's very interesting and within that. So I won't predict a winner yet, but I just think those things are going to make the game very interesting to watch. Two contrasting styles. Tweets, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat with you, Kevin. Liz, Miami's defense. We talked about this earlier in the year. They were September, early October. They were the best team in the country, primarily because that defense was hitting on all cylinders. Now the defense took a slight drop, kind of mid-season. The loss to Louisville and stuff. Not as bad as the offense did, but the defense did take a slight drop. They're back to playing the way they were before, and if they're playing like that, they're going to be a really tough out. That being said, Ole Miss's defense, I'm not going to say they were world beaters against Georgia, but they did step up and get the stops that they needed when they needed them to hold on and win that game. And that's, if you're not a top defense, and even if you are a top defense, that's one quality that you need to win a championship is you need to get those stops, a timely stops. You have to have those to win it all. That's something that Ole Miss did against Georgia the other night. Will they be able to do it against Miami and Beck? I don't know. It remains to be seen. I'm with Kevin. It's going to be a tough game. I'm going to go ahead and pick a winner, though. Um, I think Miami wins the game. I think the defense is too much. And Beck's been playing better recently. He's not gotten not through those boneheaded picks. Has held on to the ball. So I'm going to go ahead and take Miami right now. Unless something crazy happened this week, that's my pick going in. DMAC thoughts.
Yeah, this Miami front seven is phenomenal. I think Keem Mazador and Ruben Bain might be the best duo in college football from a defensive line edge position group. They're going to get after the Ole Miss offense. But Trinidad is really good at creating space too and delivering when he creates that space, which I think is different than any dual threat they faced. Marcel Reed's really good, but he's a much better passer when he's in the pocket throwing than when he's out on the run. Now he can beat you with his legs, but the way Trinidad tore up that Georgia defense, outside of the pocket through the air, was phenomenal. So, that's the matchup I'm most excited about is the front seven for Miami versus the Ole Miss offense. I think both teams are going to be able to make some plays on the other side. Like I don't think Ole Miss is going to completely shut down the Miami offense, but at the same time, I don't see the Miami offense just going off for a ton of yards at the same time. So it's going to come down to who makes more plays, Mazador and Bain or Trinidad Chambliss. And Ole Miss got some exciting news. They re-signed Kewan Lacey and Trinidad if he wins a waiver and comes back to college football. So, yeah, they even with all the change that's happened within Ole Miss in the last 4 weeks, 5 weeks, the team seems to be pretty well bought into their goals this season. So I'm not going to make a prediction just yet either. But I think it's going to be a really good game. So that takes us to the Big Ten matchup of Oregon and Indiana. Sweet, get us started on this one.
Yeah, just one thing I want to go back to on the Ole Miss Miami thing and Chambliss. Speaking of Chambliss, the he reminded me a lot of Joe Burrow against Georgia in that SEC championship game, 6 years ago or so, in that every time he broke pocket, he kept his eyes downfield. Receivers broke free, and he was able to continue to make plays, and that's how Burrow, beat the living breaks off of Georgia that season. And that's how he was able to get it done against that Georgia defense was not thinking take off immediately, keeping his eyes downfield, knowing where he was at on the field and just the instincts. It was a lot of fun to watch. Hell of a game. Indiana, Oregon, tough to beat a good team twice in the same season. Is Oregon a good team? I think they are, but I also think that Indiana is just, I mean that they put on an absolute clinic against Alabama. I haven't seen an Alabama team uh, beaten like that, since Bear Bryant used to break out whips at practice. It was ugly. They beat them physically, mentally, emotionally, every way possible. Mendoza's been fantastic. That line on both sides of the ball, the line, and people have talked a lot about the age of some of the kids. They've got a lot of fifth and sixth year kids, across the lines and stuff. Listen, everybody else had the opportunity to do the same thing. So why people are whining about Indiana being successful because of that is just, be pissed off that your staffs didn't do that and that Indiana's, put the right formula together to win games because they've done that at an astounding rate over the past 2 years. And Signetti has hit twice in the portal. We'll see if he can do it a third time. Back to the game. I do like Indiana in this one. They had one hiccup. It was against Penn State. They still did enough to win the game. But God, it's a lot of fun to watch that team right now. They hit. They're fast, physical, everything about them. I love it. DMAC, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean this Indiana team is the best we've seen in the last couple of years from any program. Coached well. They don't make mistakes on either side of the ball. Mendoza's probably going to be your number one pick in the upcoming NFL draft. Their defense doesn't have a lot of guys who just jump off paper to you. from like a name recognition standpoint. Man, all 16, 17 guys that rotate in on their defense just play sound fundamental football. Um, and then on the Oregon side, it is tough to beat somebody twice. But I'm going to make a prediction on this game, and then I'll go back and make one on the other one in a few minutes. As tough as it is to beat somebody twice, I'm rolling Indiana here. I'm going to go with like a 27-17 game. Indiana's just, really, really good team. They run well. Mendoza only had to throw the ball 18 times last game. I think he completed 16 of them for, 200 yards and 3 touchdowns, but they also ran for like 265 as a team. So, they can beat you in a multitude of ways, and I think they're going to beat Oregon in a lot of ways too. Kevin, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I kind of like Sweets here. I want to go back and touch on Ole Miss a little bit. So for Ole Miss to win that game, Chambliss has to play well. He has to be elite. You mentioned Burrow. They will not beat Miami if he does not have a really good game. And then, you mentioned him as a pocket passer, D-Mac. He is a good pocket passer. He throws the slant very well, and he's very smart. If he sees that you're giving that cushion, he'll take it. And then if you cheat up on him, he's very good throwing the back shoulder. So Chambliss is a really good quarterback. To me, I think he potentially played himself into the first round of that Georgia game, and we'll see how he does against Miami. But I don't think he has to have a great game to stay in the first round either. I just think he has to have a good game against Miami in that defense. They don't even have to win, but if they score 20 points and he ends up, 17 out of 28 for 210, 220, no interceptions, I think he validates who he is. Now, if he has a great game, then that's even more so for him. So, but I think I'll go ahead and make a prediction on the Ole Miss game in Miami. I like Miami to win the game strictly because of the line of scrimmage, and I think the fact that Chambliss is going to have to be outstanding will be too much for Ole Miss to overcome in that game. Give me Miami with the. It's hard to beat a team that can win on both sides of the line of scrimmage, much like what Indiana did to Alabama. And I think the line of scrimmage. I don't think the score of the game will be anywhere near that. I think the physical play, though, will be similar to what Indiana did to Alabama. I think Miami's line of scrimmage will dominate both sides of the ball. Again, Texas A&M has a good offensive line, and that defensive line just ran through them. Ohio State's not been bad offensively, offensive line this year, and they had 5 sacks. So I just think line of scrimmage is going to be so strong in Miami's favor. I'm going to take Miami 27-17 in that game. I think they'll be able to run the ball, and I think their front four will get pressure, and I just think that'll be the difference. Swapping and going now to Indiana, Oregon, we've said it. Indiana's the best coach team in college football. They do have probably the most physical team too, but just sheer execution, there's no team in comparison. And to me, you really have to watch Mendoza to understand how good he is, simply because they don't need him to throw for 300 yards. When he needed to throw the ball in the first half against Alabama and move the ball, he was very effective. I think he only had 2 incompletions in the game, but he didn't throw it in the second half because he didn't need him to. But when they needed first downs and they needed to move the ball, and they had some tough third downs early, he stepped up, threw the ball very well. So they're so well rounded. They're good. They're strong on both lines. They have a good secondary. They have a good running game. They have wide receivers that can get open and catch the ball, and they can beat you deep. They just have no weaknesses, and they're so well coached. Now, that being said, I also think Oregon has improved a lot since the first time they played. Oregon has become a very physical football team. They beat Iowa at Iowa being physical. Um, you know, to me the other day they played very physical against Texas Tech, and defensively just absolutely shut them down, and did enough offensively to score 23, and really could have been 30 points if they scored in that game. And Tech has a good front seven. So I think Oregon offers a very physical matchup. And I think, much like I referenced in Ole Miss, I think the key for Oregon is their quarterback has to have a good game, um, or else they're going to be in, where Indiana can beat you multiple ways. Oregon's quarterback has got to have a good game for them to win the game, um, in that aspect of it. But both games, the point spreads are pretty close. And in Oregon's defense, it's hard to beat a team twice. So they're going to have some things there, and I do think when it comes to Hungary and how they play and playing with a chip on their shoulder, I think Oregon is going to be that team, because they've not Dan Lanning has not won one of these games where you're going into it. It's considered an even matchup. Going back to when Kalen DeBoer was at Washington and he had a chance to win that conference. Lanning has not won one of these games, so I think Lanning is going to be very motivated to have his team ready. And again, talking about Oregon's quarterback Dante Moore, he's going to want to have a good game in this game. He had a pick six in that first game that really cost him the game. So I think you're going to see a very focused Oregon team against this Indiana team. And if anybody can match up physically with Indiana, Oregon can. So I think you're going to have, two teams, very physical teams that line up, play each other. And I think this game will be decided in the fourth quarter. I do think it'll be a close game, much like Ohio State and Indiana was. I like Indiana. I think Indiana will win the game along the line somewhere 27-23. But I think this is going to be a very competitive game. Two well-coached teams. I think it's going to be a very well-played game. I don't think Oregon made some mistakes the first time. I don't think you'll see those. And even though Indiana is the most physical team in college football, I don't think that physicality difference this time will be as much as the first time, because I think Oregon's players are really going to feel challenged, and they've improved their physicality since that first game, simply because Indiana took their manhood in game one. Any other thoughts you guys have on that game?
It should be a great game. Like I said, two pretty evenly matched teams. With Mendoza winning the Heisman and Moore being talked about as a possible first pick of the draft. Defensively, they both hit. Lanning made his bones as a defensive coordinator for Georgia. Indiana's defense is hitting as hard as anybody right now. I'm just looking forward to two really good games. DMAC?
Yeah, no, nothing on that one. I will give my prediction on Ole Miss, Miami. You get a little drum roll going first. There we go. Nice little drum roll effect there.
Like it.
So this is going to be a close game. I'm going to predict 27-24. And it's going to be all Winadad. He makes a play late in the game. I think he makes one more play than the Miami front seven can make. And Ole Miss gets a win, goes to a national championship game, and Pete Golding's 3-0 in playoffs. So that's something there too.
And could you imagine how great it would have been if Kiffin had never been the coach at all? They'd be 15-0, and we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. Damn.
If Chambliss has that good game, where does he end up in the draft? It's possible. He won that Georgia game. And him and Lacey. If he has a good game, where does he end up?
I think top 10.
I would agree.
They
talked about this.
I wanted
to
see. I agree with you guys. I wanted to see something. He's really 6'1", huh? He doesn't look 6'1". If he measures at 6'1", 200 pounds, he's a top 10 pick. If he measures at 5'11", 200 pounds, maybe not. Me personally, I would take him. I'm so sick of people worry, oh, he's not 6 foot, screw that. You're either a football player or you're not a football player. And I think that they start pigeonholing these guys once they don't hit that certain size requirement that that I just can't imagine how many kids have been missed on because they didn't hit that magical height or that magical weight or whatever it is that these scouts think they need to see to have a good ball player. I mean, Drew Brees was, how tall is Drew Brees, D-Mac? You stand next to him. How tall is he?
I think it reports he's 6 foot, but I'd say like 5'10" and a half.
I was going to say 5'9.5", 5'10". You say 5'10", 5'10". He wasn't 6 foot, not close, but nobody's arguing with his results. I mean, it's just, it's silly to keep, pretending. Now, it's not like he's 5'6". It's not like we got Spud Webb out there playing quarterback, right? I mean, he's a
We're not
legitimate guy.
Vanderbilt.
Yeah, he's he's not the guy that oh my God, the Pirate. Help me out. This flu's giving me brain fog.
Pirate.
Mike,
Leach?
Mississippi State coach.
Mike Leach.
Leach.
Mike Leach.
Mike
Yeah,
Leach.
he's not the midget that Mike Leach wanted to hand the ball to and throw over the goal line in a football game because it would be legal. He's a legit 5'10" or so. So I mean, come on.
Well, I think to your point about Brees, Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield, they've all disproved that belief. You can be 5'10". Murray is probably 5'9" at most. You can be that in play. So I think Chambliss can play, and he's talking about waiver, and they keep talking about that. I just think he's not played his way out of this waiver talk. I think the talk is going to go to where he's going to go in the draft, and if he has a really good game, let's say this game's a 3-point game, he plays well. I still think he's top 20 at that. I think right now he's into the first round, and if he plays well against this defense, he's only gonna solidify it. The only thing to me, he would have to have a 3 interception game, in my opinion, to go backwards, and I don't think that's going to happen.
Listen, we admittedly we sucked a lot of the season at picking these games, right? A couple things that we were really good at is getting coaches fired or knowing when they were going to be fired, and player prognostication stuff. We all think Chambliss is a first round pick. I think it's fair that most NFL scouts think he's a first round pick as well.
That's right.
My thing is if he gets the waiver, okay, and he gets first round grade, does he come back? Does he bet on himself, or does it? I mean, I think you got to go if you're a first round quarterback. I think that's always going to be a no brainer. You don't want to Matt Leinart yourself, and go from one to not one. So stuff like that is it's a big decision. But with that type of first round money is life changing money, and
Yep.
If he's graded first round, I think he's got to go and take it. You think he'd come
I
back
think so.
if he got the waiver?
I don't think he should, but the people in Oxford, Mississippi think the Grove Collective is life-changing money too. So we'll see.
I mean, listen, if they're throwing $4 million at him for one season, that's a lot of money. It is life changing money, but it's not as life changing as 40 million. I mean, it depends on the life you want to live, I guess.
So right now, what quarterbacks would you guys have ahead in the draft?
Ahead of Chambliss,
That's a
Yeah.
good question.
the only one I would have is Mendoza.
Yeah.
I know some of the scouts have more in front of him, but if you're asking me, Chambliss is 2. That's just me.
I like more in Chambliss better than I like Mendoza. Not a knock at Mendoza at all. He's Heisman worthy, all that. That's not a knock. I'm just saying if I were the GM, I would take those two over Mendoza. Chambliss would probably be one for me, honestly.
Yeah, so I mean, we're talking potentially top 3 pick.
Yeah, certainly.
I think Mendoza goes 1. Um, I'm with you, Sweets. If I'm a GM, Trinidad's probably, unless he measures out at 5'9" or
Yeah,
5'8".
exactly.
If he's 5'10" plus, easy number one pick, and even at 5'9", which I don't think he's that short.
No,
So
I don't either. I thought 5'11". He doesn't look 6 foot.
yeah.
But, I mean, maybe he is 6'1". Hell, I just it's something that was talked about. It will be a talking point if he does enter the draft when up in Indianapolis player combine. That will be a lot that's talked about is his height. So, no, I agree. I would take him over any other quarterback in college football today.
So while we're talking player height here, Sweets, I gotta hear your thoughts. How tall is Diego Pavia?
5'9".
Okay,
Five
because
nine.
he measures at what, 6 foot on the website and stuff.
I'll take a look. You're probably right. There aren't a lot of people who, but it's like it's like your social media profile. Everybody's 6'4", 220 benches 315 for reps and all that. Where's it at here? Diego.
Because I saw, Julian Saying was and Mendoza were both at the Heisman ceremony, and when they were standing next to each other,
Yeah.
there was a significant height difference,
It,
and
it
they're
says it
they're
says
both.
it says he's 6 foot. I would say 5'9". I think 5'9" is fair, maybe 5'9.5". It's funny when I pulled it up online, the first thing that popped up is a Facebook page that says speculation about Pavia's height. Somebody says he's 5'6" with heels on. That's a good one.
I think he's about 5'8".
But
What do
but
y'all?
again, did he win football games? Did he get it done?
Yep.
It's just a yes or no question.
Yep.
Would he have won more games if he was an inch taller? What about 2 inches taller? Are they undefeated if he's legitimately 6 foot? I mean, that's silly.
No,
Yeah,
it wouldn't make a difference.
I mean, maybe if he was like 6'10", maybe it makes a difference
Yeah.
with his athleticism still. But yeah, I mean, if even if he was up to 6'2", like you're not gonna win any more games.
Like we've been told our lives, though, size matters, guys. Size matters. 6 foot is magic.
So I think good segue now into the transfer portal, and we can start with the LSU Tigers. I know they've had a pretty big day in the transfer portal. Couple receivers. Kevin, you want to get us started off with LSU?
Yeah, let me talk about the portal just a little bit in general. We talked about it the other night, Sunday night, and basically how at that time Oklahoma State and Indiana were two winners early, and they certainly are. And I would tell you and Ole Miss had a good start. I would tell you though, over the last couple of days, I think LSU's really came on, and you're starting to see them. I think they're up to 8 to 10 commitments now. I mean, a really interesting thing, just total portal this year versus the previous years. Teams have supplemented in the previous years, supplemented starters. This year's portal is about building depth. It's not just going out and finding safety help because I need safety help, wide receiver help because I need wide receiver help. This year's portal, and this is more than just one team. This is pretty much across the board. This year's portal is about your second teamers and building depth. And I reference that because some of the guys LSU has taken are depth players. Some of them, like Jace Brown out of Kansas State, I think he's a starter. But they've got two running backs that are depth guys. They've got, I think Brown's a starter, and probably their wide receiver from Old Dominion is a starter, potential starter. I think some of the others that they're taking there in that position are depth players. They will play a lot and maybe start. I think the Hawaii player's an example of that. I think he's a really good player. I think he's your wide receiver 4 maybe. Uh, but I say that Kiffin doesn't really have 1, 2, 3, 4. It's about he puts them in position, calls the offensive plays based on where they're at and what the defense is giving them. But I just think what we're seeing LSU do, the safety they took today from Boise, I think he's a depth player. He might end up starting, but if he doesn't, so be it. You need that third safety because with Spears and Cooley coming back, they only have two with any experience. You look across college football, you're seeing not just LSU with 8 linemen in the portal. You look at Alabama; they've got 5, I think, offensive linemen in the portal. You see across every team, pretty much the whole roster is open for either being re-signed or hitting the portal. So that's making this portal very different. It is really important for teams to get depth. That GM role is so huge. We talked about the other night. Your evaluations, that GM role. Who do you have? Getting players in. The tight end from Pittsburgh that LSU took. He's not going to start.
He's not. Yeah,
but he's going to be very
valuable.
Right, but he's going to be very valuable when you go to 2 tight end sets, and he's going to be needed. And they may need another tight end there. The 2 running backs they've taken, they're not going to start, but they're absolutely going to be needed. So I think what we're seeing LSU do is the beginning of how they build out their team. The defensive lineman they got from Clemson today, huge pickup. They need depth at D tackle. He may end up starting some, but he absolutely is going to fill a rotation, much like Jacoby and Guillory. And he's going to be more of a nose tackle at times, can play DT, but you need that zero technique guy that can play over the center in short yardage. And I think that's what you're seeing LSU do is build out their roster with depth and players that can play roles and positions. And it's absolutely important for all teams to be able to do that. So I think early, I think you can still put Ole Miss, Oklahoma State, Indiana. Indiana's probably done the best so far, but I think you're starting to see LSU build a good quality team through some good portal work. Much still left to do there. DMAC, you said last week they might take 30, and they might. They're going to take 25 at least. So we'll see how they roll, as they start filling out with more starters and stuff. But I think what they're doing as they're building their team has been really key since Saturday. The interesting thing too, and I'll say this and let you guys roll. People were panicking Sunday about LSU's transfer portal. Look, I mean, we're still just into day 4 of this thing. You're just getting people on campus. I think there's over 6,000 players now in the portal. So, this is going to play out for a little while. You have to be in the portal by January 16th. You don't have to be signed or committed by the 16th. So this could play out into the 3rd week of January for some schools, the totality of it. So anyhow, Sweets, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm with you. A lot of these guys aren't going to sign early because a lot of them will be leaving money on the table if they do. Listen, these guys are the reason why most of them went into the portal is to get a better deal. Let's not kid ourselves. For some, it's about playing time. For some, it's about starting. For some, it's about getting closer to home. Different reasons. But more often than not, it's because they want more money than they were getting yesterday. And that's all well and good. I think that some of these guys will. There are a lot of your top flight players that are going to get a lot better deals than they had. Some of them are going to end up with no place to go, and they're going to be without a school. That's the way it goes when you go into the portal. But I think that a lot of it is you'll start to see more happen as the days goes on. I wouldn't get excited until the weekend about what you have or haven't signed. If LSU went into the weekend with 3 or 4 commitments, if they went into this next weekend with 3 or 4 commitments, I'd be a little worried. But I think they're on a pace. Nobody is in transfer portal hell right now because they haven't made enough acquisitions. There's plenty of time for that. DMAC?
I agree. I will be excited when I see some O linemen commit to LSU, though. I will say that much. But yeah, we're adding quality depth with the guys we've added. I know it's going to be a big week of visits for LSU. Yeah, you've got a few positions, especially on offense. You're looking at quarterback, offensive line, and wide receiver that are complete reboots. You've signed two good depth pieces at running back to go along with Harlem Berry. So I'm not nearly as worried about that, or tight end, where you've got a trade as Green too. And you've added a depth piece there at tight end. But yeah, definitely wide receiver, quarterback, and O liner. I would assume the focus. Sam Levitt is in Baton Rouge right now. I think he is staying through tomorrow. So you get basically a 3-day visit with the number one quarterback in the nation. That sounds like it's going pretty well. But yeah, I'll be excited when I see an O lineman commit to LSU. That's for sure. Because right now, I mean, we guess we technically have enough bodies to fill the starting lineup.
Yeah,
But they're just bodies.
there's
So
don't despair. There's still a few teams playing that guys haven't thrown their names into that hat yet, but it's not over yet.
oh yeah, I mean I think LSU is going to be fine when it comes to that. I'm not in panic mode by any means. But I will be excited when I finally see it. Um, and I think we could see the potential of, a day like today where we signed four guys. What if two or three linemen pop in all at one time, and really, really gives the fan base, a little moment of clarity and peace within the transfer portal. But at the end of the day, I mean, anytime you have 20 guys or 27 guys transfer out, and you're rebuilding in a 14-day window, you're not going to re-sign 27 new guys 3 days in, either. So
You're right. The most important LSU employee for the month of January is Mr. Glasscock.
yeah,
He is the most important LSU employee we have right now. He needs to get his job right. He needs to hit on those evals. He hits on the evals, we get him in. I've got confidence in this staff to coach these kids up. I didn't have that same confidence in the last staff, for obvious reasons, because they didn't coach him. There was no way we missed on that many evals. But I digress. I think that we'll be fine. Um, and like I said, I don't think a lot of the linemen. I think a lot of linemen are still weighing their options.
yeah,
Um, so I think there'll be a lot more that jump in, and then you'll see things start to matriculate down the pipeline. So I think everybody and again, it's not about who's in and who isn't. It's about getting the right ones that are there, and that's why I said, Mr. Glasscock, you're on the clock, buddy.
yeah. I mean, I don't have to have a guy who's got 4 stars next to his name in the transfer portal. Yeah.
Mm-mm.
There's I've noticed a few LSU guys like Kyle Parker's a guy who I think is going to be great wherever he goes. But he's like a mid-tier 3-star in the transfer portal. Um, so even the industry pros make mistakes. I mean, we see it, every year in recruiting and now with the transfer portal. So, you
Where
know, I,
where was Fernando Mendoza in the transfer portal last year? Anybody know his ranking? Just out of
he was
curiosity.
he was relatively high.
Okay. Was he? Was
Yeah.
he number one?
No, I think he was like a top 3 or 4 quarterback though, if I remember
Gotcha.
correctly.
Gotcha. I couldn't remember. I was just asking, just to say, I mean, hey, listen, they don't always, more often than not, they get it, it's wrong. It's not right. But it's usually a good template to work off of. Yeah, I mean, oh, that can't be right. Go ahead, keep going. I'm looking this up on Mendoza. Sorry.
But yeah, even with Mendoza, I don't know if the third or fourth ranked quarterback in the portal was, a Heisman winner. In theory there. Actually, no, we know who the Heisman favorites were, and two of the three from the SEC barely made. Well, one didn't make a bowl game, and
Huh,
then one's team made a bowl game, and he was
but he didn't
hurt.
make
Yeah,
it.
so there's plenty of ways to find guys.
Certainly.
You know, I'm not worried. I mean, Texas Tech is doing well in the transfer portal. Um, they landed Sorsby, really good defensive lineman as well. They're a favorite for a really good edge, and they'll add guys. That oil money in Texas may run a little deeper than chicken finger money here in Louisiana, unfortunately.
But I don't get it. We have oil in Louisiana. There's oil in Louisiana. I know it.
We do, but it's
Well,
it's all Lake
do
Charles,
the
Lafayette, and they're
do
just
the people in Texas own it?
they actually a lot of it is. But I mean, Lake Charles is a boom town when oil's running.
Yeah.
I mean, look at who they just had as a basketball coach for a few years, and were able to, really make him consider a decision to leave. Um, but at the end of the day, it's McNeese, and you get a chance to be in a premium basketball conference again. So yeah, I mean, there's money there for sure. And Kevin, can you hear us?
I think Kev's having some trouble down there.
Yes, he's letting it go like he's in the movie Frozen right now.
Yeah. It's kind of scary looking, isn't it?
Uh,
There it goes.
he should hop right
Hey,
back.
listen, Kev, when you come back on, I've been through this countless times. Y'all don't act like you don't remember. I did 25 times an episode it had happened. But thanks to my lovely wife, Teresa, she got me a beautiful brand new MacBook for Christmas, and now you get to see all this pretty salt and pepper beard and wrinkles and stuff. So thank her for that.
So, Sweets, do you think LSU lands Sam Levitt at quarterback?
I right now it sounds like yes. I don't know. I've heard conflicting reports on how long the actual visit was supposed to last, but I think with Sorsby signing with Tech, I just can't picture him casting his NFL lot with Kentucky. Um,
Well,
stranger things have happened.
Kentucky's out now.
Are they?
Yeah, they signed Kenny Minchie from Notre Dame.
Okay.
Out. Very, very interesting turn of events there.
That's did that happen today? You're on.
Yeah,
Can you
either
hear us, Kev?
I think today. Yeah,
Okay. So
Can y'all hear
so
me?
if that happened today, that kind of tells me that Kentucky knew which way the wind was blowing. And I've also heard he may or may not visit Miami. Obviously, I would, if I was a crystal ball guy, I would say Levitt to LSU at present. Kevin, we're talking about Levitt and where he possibly ends up.
Yeah, I want to go back though. I could hear you guys. So offensive line, you guys were talking about offensive line. Look, there's been some really good offensive linemen jump in the portal the last 2 days. It's not, we talked about it Sunday. It was the weakest group, and it still probably is. But you had Bo Hughley from Georgia. That's a tackle that could play anywhere in the country. Jacarius Peak, which late Sunday night jumped in. But you take Peak, Hughley, Lance Hurd, Chaplin, Andrew Sprague from Michigan, who actually committed to Alabama today. You've got some good tackles now. Josh Atkins, we mentioned him the other day. So I think you're starting. I think there's enough offensive linemen in the portal now that if you want to build out a group, you can. And there's still, you guys mentioned there's more to come. There are. But trust me, Georgia wants Hughley back if they can get him. And so with Hughley, Hurd, Peak, Chaplin, Spray, those guys are all left tackles. Adams, if we wanted him back, but I think Adams is after all those guys. So before I get into Levitt, I think DMAC, you mentioned you want to hear offensive linemen. I think probably getting them in for visits is later simply because they were later to enter the portal. I think we probably start seeing those guys midweek start popping in for visits at different places, that whole group. And I think, midweek to Friday, we see some commitments, not just for LSU, but across everybody for the offensive line. Now, going to Sam Levitt, I feel good about LSU and their chances there. Miami is the team that they got to watch for. But some things that I read today, I think Miami's going to make a play for Ty Simpson if Ty Simpson opts to not get in the draft. I think they're and he, there's all the things that you hear. I mean, he's been pretty adamant over the years about playing for Bama and been very committed to them. Sat on the bench, waited his time. But there's a lot of scuttle out there that he might be open for the portal this time. He hadn't put in for it, and he had a good year, and I feel like he feels like he was coached up this year. But there's that scuttle's out there for a reason. So maybe that's where Miami goes, is for him. I don't know, but I feel good about Levitt and LSU. I think they'll close that off, and I really feel like he's the guy that will end up there. You talk about his injury, end of October, June will be about that 6-month time frame, and then you can start building on it from there. I think that gives him plenty of time. He's played. He's again, we talked about Chambliss. Chambliss was not he didn't play spring ball at Ole Miss last year. He didn't get there until the fall practice in August. So I think we're not talking about a freshman. We're talking about the guy that's played in 20 plus games. So I think Levitt's fine.
Yeah.
As long as he can throw in the summer, I think he's fine. And talented guy. I hope that's who LSU ends up with.
I agree with everything you said, and like I said, if he didn't have the injury, this wouldn't be a discussion. He would have been the number one quarterback in the portal with a bullet, and probably would have commanded a little more money than he's actually going to get because of the injury. That being said, I also loved what you said about Chambliss not getting to Oxford until June. Levitt's a pro. He's a multiple year starter at a big time school that's been to a college playoff. He knows what he needs to do. It's not like you're getting some green kid who's clueless. He'll be fine. He's smart. He's a very smart kid, book smart kid too. So he'd be living in the ops building with the playbook and everything. I'm not concerned about when he gets there, so long as he's 100%. That's an injury that you don't want to rush. So yeah, I like it.
So a little bit of a doomsday scenario here. If Levitt does not end up at LSU, which all three of us think he will, where do you think the Tigers would turn at that point?
I can tell you who I'd like for them to go after. I don't know that they'll go there. I think Deuce Knight is the quarterback that fits Kiffin's system perfectly. He's a big, strong guy, much like Jackson Dart was. Got a good arm. Not he's got some room to improve his accuracy in that piece, much like Dart did. But he's a dual threat guy, and he can pass the ball. So I don't know if that's who they would go to next. That's who I would like them see them go to next.
I'm drawing a blank. I'm absolutely drawing a blank. What about you, DMAC?
Yeah, Deuce Knight would be number one on my list as well. You guys know I'm a bit of a fan of DJ Lagway. If I've obviously it's Sam Levitt, If things don't go well with him, you got to make a huge push for Deuce Knight. But after that, like, man, some of the next top quarterbacks are um, DJ Lagway and Bo Perola. I would lean DJ Lagway just because I think he could thrive in a Lane Kiffin system. Hopefully we don't go down that rabbit hole here in the transfer portal. We can just go ahead and sign Sam Levitt tomorrow and start focusing on other positions of need.
Um, Lagway for the right price. I think Lagway wants a lot, and he just hasn't done enough to earn what he thinks he's worth at present. I mean, he made a ton from Florida his first 2 years, and he doesn't have a whole hell of a lot to show for it. And he's often in. He's been an injury problem since he stepped on campus. Those things scare me. Throwing a lot of money at a kid who's always injured. Levitt, first time injury, and he's actually got a book where you could say he's been good. Lagway, always injured, was all world in high school, but as a college guy, it's like I said, for the right price, you know,
And then,
be Levitt's backup.
Let me throw out another one. So, again, we've talked about Kiffin, develop Blake Sims, develop Jake Coker, develop Chambliss. He's really good. He's as good as there is with quarterbacks. I don't like Lagway just from a leadership standpoint. I'm not sure he's your team leader. So I kick him to the side there. But one guy that showed some leadership for his team down the end that was pretty good with decisions that I think that's a little dual threat guy that I think could be a good quarterback under Kiffin. I think give me Ashton Daniels that was at Auburn that finished the season strong under Kiffin and his offense. Dual threat guy, showed leadership. I would take him also in this offense and a guy that can coach him up.
Well, I think did he commit to Florida State
He
recently?
did. He did. But hey, look, there's already Kenny Minchon committed to Nebraska, and then he's at Kentucky. Look, it's all fairs in love and war, all fairs in the transfer portal.
Where does a guy like Dylan Raiola end up?
That's the name. That's the name that I thought of when you first said that. I don't know if he's the type of quarterback for a Kiffin offense, but for talent, I mean, he's as talented, I think, as anybody, as anybody else has mentioned. I mean, it was just, it wasn't that much over a year ago that he was one of the top quarterbacks in the nation. Now he's got 2 years under his belt at Nebraska, and you know, we could do worse. We could do worse.
I just think much like with Lagway, I just think there's something missing with Raiola. He looks the part, but when it comes to getting wins, and we've talked about it, making clutch throws, leading your team. So I think that's a good question. There were rumors that Louisville, but that's not where he's going to go. Louisville signed Kleinholz from Ohio State, so I think that's a really good question. Here's a guy that I think transferred 3 times in high school, and he's already transferred 2 times in college, maybe 4 times in high school. Well, if you count the fact that he transferred to one school and then ended up one school he didn't even go to in high school that he was going to and ended up at Buford. I'm just not sure he's a guy that a coach can have confidence that this guy's going to lead my team. And I think that's where you're going to see. I think he's going to fall.
Oh, he's already fallen. I mean, he's the fact that he's not getting the attention that he thought he would, but a lot of it, you hear out there, and I've admittedly been sick the past few days, so I haven't been up as much on the news and stuff. But a lot of issues with the they don't want to deal with the family. Kind of a Colin Hurley situation. The dad is thinks the kid's a lot more than he actually is. And not that saying Colin Hurley is as talented as Raiola, because it's not even close. But it's one of those situations where you've got an overbearing parent or group of people that are, some coaches just say to hell with it. I don't want to deal with the headache. I am Lieva, I mean, where's he at now? I mean, sometimes it just gets to be too much.
Yeah, I could see, depending on what Miami does with their quarterback room, I could see Raiola ended up somewhere like that. Um, if a guy like Simpson or somebody doesn't enter the portal, stays put or goes pro, Raiola fits. I don't want to say this the wrong way, but just the big name aspect. Carson Beck was a known name, but was kind of not forced out. But there was maybe a little writing on the wall at Georgia there. So I wouldn't be surprised if Miami's his landing spot.
How ironic is it that the guy that Georgia pushed out the door is still in it and they're not?
I
That's the way it
know.
goes sometimes.
We almost got that matchup
Yeah, that would have been a fun one.
until Chambliss went nuts.
That would have been a fun one.
I will
You
say though,
know,
at the end of the day, I'd roll with Gunnar Stockton.
I would.
For Beck.
Yeah.
And I would too. I think Beck, higher ceiling, lower floor.
Yeah.
Miami's going to be interesting. I would have thought they might have even made a play for Lagway, but it really looks like Lagway is going to go to Florida State. And if that happens again, Ashton Daniels, where does he go? Does he stay? So we're not done with this. As far as some of these guys may make two moves, and Miami's a big factor in this and who they get. And again, you're going to have sliders like Raiola. I think Prabula is another one that you're going to see slide, and where he ends up, who knows. Another interesting quarterback move is Austin Simmons to Missouri.
Yeah,
I still think there's potential there with Simmons, and he's another one that I would not have minded seeing ending up at LSU. I don't think he would have been a starter next year, but I do still think he has a lot of potential to play the position and play it well.
yeah. I still think LSU signing 2 transfer portal quarterbacks.
At minimum.
We're talking about 1. We ain't even got 1, and we need at least 2.
Yep.
Probably need 3.
Yep.
But,
Well, that quarterback from Elon is likely to be the third.
Come on down. Is Emil still on the roster, DMAC?
Yeah, he is.
Well, I mean,
But after we figure out the starting situation, I wouldn't mind like a Bryce Baker or the guy I really want is Braden Atkinson from Mercer as QB2. But Bryce Baker from UNC kind of fits the mold a little bit of, what Lane Kiffin looks for. So, if I think the perfect landing spot for DJ Lagway, though, and you guys are going to think this is ridiculous, he should go to UNLV for 1 season and work with Dan Mullen and then either go pro or go back up for a final year somewhere. But I think he would be developed really well while being a starter at a place like UNLV.
I don't think that's insane. I mean, I don't think Mullen is the QB whisperer that you do, but I don't think he's bad. I don't think that's a stupid move. He could end up a lot worse places than UNLV for development and just in general.
So Dan Mullen is probably not top 15 for me from a quarterback whisperer standpoint, but for places that Lagway can go and play immediately, I think he's closer to the top for sure.
I understand. I don't totally disagree with you. So, I think that that Lagway could go there and I think that I also think that drop in competition would help him look a lot better too, and perhaps rebuild the confidence that he's lost, because it's obvious that kid has lost his confidence from when he first stepped on campus. I mean, the 5 pick for performance against us wasn't enough, that he had to try to replicate it a few times. So his confidence is shot, and he does need a reboot from that standpoint. I don't think UNLV's a bad spot for him.
Because I would assume that Dan Mullen has some sort of relationship with Lagway, because he would have been recruiting him in the early stages of high school back then.
Yeah. I think it's a good spot. And I will say, I think Mullen is one of your better quarterback developers. I mean, so here's some guys that he's developed. Dak Prescott. No one would have predicted Dak to be an NFL quarterback for the longevity that he has. Alex Smith. He was the OC for Meyer when Smith developed. Chris Leak, Tebow, Felipe Franks, Kyle Trask, Anthony Richardson played some for so again I think Mullen is a very good quarterbacks coach. Josh Harris is another one. So I think that would be an outstanding place for him to go for a guy that to me needs development. I don't know that he will be that humble to put himself in a place to do that. I think he has bigger aspirations. I think he ends up in the Big 12 somewhere. But to your point, D-Mac, he needs to go where he can get coached up.
Yeah,
For sure. And I think he needs to. He doesn't need to be in the SEC right now. I think he needs a tick down in competition.
I think so.
and then we gotta get a pair of Louisiana quarterbacks at least in the portal with Eli Holston and Ricky Collins. Well, I'm eager to see where those two guys land, because Collins did not have a good year this year, but I was super high on him coming out of high school. Not to be like a day one starter at LSU or anything, but I thought he had a really good skill set from watching him in high school.
I'm really interested in where TJ Finley ends up. I mean, this will be his 7th school in 7 years. So 6 schools, 3 kids later, he's still at it. And the thing that was wildest about it was what he said was that I want to stay in college because this is the best avenue I have to support my kids. NIL is the best. See, this is what I'm saying about NIL being a joke, is that it wasn't designed to support families. That's not what it was for. And now you've got kids saying, "Hey, man, this is the best way to support my 3 kids." I mean, it's just insane.
Yeah, we could go back to Texas to Whataburger U.
Maybe where he has to go.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't understand how he can still play another year.
It's amazing. I think we all knew NIL would be good money, but where it's at's just crazy. We've talked.
I mean, we're talking TJ Finley here, not Sam Levitt. Like, how much money is Finley actually getting from some of the schools that he's gone to as well?
Well, let's just say this: if he gets 100,000, it's more than he's going to make doing whatever else.
Yeah, exactly. If he got 100,000, what? And he's been 7 years, so I imagine I'm hoping he has at least 1 degree and probably 2, or should be on his way to 2. I'm not sure what skill set he has as a 23, 24-year-old that he could step into a job right now and demand 6 figures for his services in anything besides football. And perhaps he does, and I hope he does. Because you never want to see kids struggle. But it's just wild to hear a college quarterback say this is the best way to support my family.
Hey, more power to him, I guess.
Yeah, I'm not mad at him. I mean, hell, he's not robbing the bank.
I guess if I was TJ Finley and I could play college football, I'd probably play as long as I could.
There ain't a damn one of us that wouldn't. We all it's ridiculous, but if you had the opportunity to play and keep playing and keep playing and keep playing, you do. I mean, because
Absolutely.
at the heart of it, it's still a game. It's still the game that you grew up loving to play with your friends, in the cul-de-sac or the sandlot or at the park or at the church at school or wherever you played it at. It's still that same game that you loved. And it's not easy to give that up. And and now that they're getting paid really good money to do it, I mean, play 10 years if you could in college.
Here's another interesting name in the transfer portal at quarterback, Gio Lopez. He was kind of a commodity last year.
He was, but he struggled. He's still potential. Along though that you just got another one that just entered though, along with Lopez, which Lopez was earlier today. Damon Williams from Washington, who at one point was going back to Washington, is now entered the portal with a no contact.
I love the no contacts. Those are my favorite. And then the signing the day later. How can you not say it's tampering when the kid says, "I'm not talking to anybody, so don't reach out." And then 12 hours later, he's signed for 1.7.
That's
He
because
might go
kid
ahead.
never talked. His representation did.
Yeah,
Mm.
he might have moved up to the right behind Dylan Rayola for the Lane Kiffin quarterback now that he's entered.
Do you guys think that Kiffin would look at Rayola? Did he recruit him out of high school? I don't recall.
Demond Williams.
Oh, okay. I thought you said Rayola. I apologize.
No, no.
Dude, there's so many. Oh, AJ Swan. He's a Mississippi State Bulldog.
Yeah. Two Marietta quarterbacks are in the portal, or actually, I guess they both signed, or no, one signed. The kid I told you about the other day, Kev, you remember Tyler Hughes? He was at William and Mary, had like 2,800 yards passing, 20 touchdowns, 2 picks, had about 800 yards or so rushing. He actually signed with Wyoming today. Watch him go out there and blow that place up. He's going to do really well there. And then another kid named my former neighbor, Jalen Woods. He was at Southern the past 2 years, and he's transferring out now to go elsewhere. He hasn't ended up anywhere yet, but he's transferring as well. So
Like he was at Georgia Southern.
no, at Southern by you.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, Jalen Woods. I
Yeah,
wish both those kids luck.
tons of. You know who else we need to? Never mind. Never
And
mind.
I will say, let me say this about Jalen Woods. His little brother is a really good cornerback that will be a senior this year in high school, and he's a gray shirt. So he might be 18, 19 years old now. So um, yeah. So if you get the older brother, maybe the little brother follows along. Who knows? It wouldn't be the first time something like that's happened. Speaking of that, is older Mubenga following little Mubenga to Sui? Has anybody seen anything on that or?
I have not seen anything on visits from Mabinga. Chester went to South Carolina on a visit, and then today went to Alabama on a visit. Go figure.
Ah, well, good for him.
Yeah,
We can just trade Alabama linemen right now and call it a day. I'd take that trade.
yeah,
I would love to see Chester start at center for him next year.
Me too.
yeah. The SEC is in a weird place this portal season. From an offensive line perspective, there's a lot of shuffling around of guys who weren't great at their previous SEC school. So it's I'm making an early prediction. The Big Ten is going to be the better conference again next year.
I think so too. I think so too. It's yeah, it's just crazy to watch these. That's just free agency and just I'm not good enough to play here. But see, a lot of those other schools are looking at Chester and they're looking at that high school tape and saying he was so good. I can get it out of him. I can get it out of him. Maybe he can. Maybe another coach can. I don't know. But the thing he needs more than anything is a fire lit under him. He needs to become a lot more aggressive. Whatever, if he decides to continue to put pads on for a living, he needs to get a lot tougher and a lot
The
meaner.
LSU fans are going to be feeling some type of way when Chester's laying out LSU defensive
Oh
line.
yeah, when he gets off the nose guard and blows up Weeks.
Yeah.
It's
Oh
not
yeah,
going to happen.
yeah.
It's not going to happen. That is the least thing I'm worried about.
Be sure you record that one.
Yeah, you can. I'll write that check right now for a receipt for someone later. Call it for me now. Look, great kid, great family. I just don't see him having success.
No, we goof around and cut up on here, but I'm telling you, if they just touch base with Kevin and I before they decide to talk to him, we could say, hey, look, this kid maybe a year 4 start or something like that. He's a depth piece. He shouldn't be starting in year 2. Make sure he's not starting in year 2. Whatever happens, he cannot start in year 2. LSU's like, nah, we got this. We got this. Mubanga, Chester, let's go.
Yeah,
It
we're
worked out really
gonna
well.
have to get a hold of Billy Glasscock here so
There
he
you
can
go.
consult you
Billy.
guys, Georgia. Guys, any last minute thoughts before we wrap up here on Portal?
I hope everybody has a great week. Looking forward to some great football, and that's that.
Looking forward to Miami and Indiana playing for the national championship. I think we're going to have two great semifinal games. Both spreads are within 5. I think one's 4.5, one's 3.5. So I think we're going to have two really good games. I think they're going to indicate that. I think both these games could be in the 45 to 55 range for a point total. So I think it's going to be interesting. Special teams play, key interception, both these games. I think we got two really good semifinals to watch this week.
Yeah, the only thing I can add is I can give one guarantee for the national championship. The winning head coach will be a former Nick Saban assistant. So that's all I've
That's an
got
easy one.
tonight. You guys have a great week, and we'll talk to you